The painting Ophelia by artist John Millais was inspired by a tragic scene from William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Let me remind you that in the play Shakespeare only casually mentioned the fate of Ophelia after she found out that her lover had killed her father. We can only guess whether it was suicide or an accident. But according to the plot of the play, it is clear that Ophelia is slowly starting to go crazy from such a shock, and from such a tough choice that she found herself in front of. And this is how the famous psychoanalyst interprets the plot of the picture. The painting depicts a riot of nature and flowering, which is associated with spring and something life-affirming. But at the same time, the eye is attracted by the stream, which has been so dark for a long time, that it creates a feeling of incredible depth and abyss. This detail seems unnatural because it is obvious that a small stream cannot be so deep. Ophelia must not drown in it. But you can see how the water gradually draws it in, and therefore there is fear and an anxious premonition of death. The moment between life and death may be the first and rather superficial reading of the picture. Ophelia, as we know, went mad after Hamlet killed her father. In psychoanalytic reality, every man conquering a woman must symbolically kill her father. That is, to replace the father in her heart. If we consider the events of the play as a theater of inner psychic experiences, then Hamlet's act is the first step towards winning Ophelia's heart. And the girl herself, who had previously been in girlish sexual fantasies and dreams, could now give herself to the man who conquered her. She could have become a woman. In her body, in her open arms, and especially in her face, in her half-open mouth, you can read humility and openness. But openness to what? A new female experience or death. But that's not the most interesting thing. The artist did not just capture the transitional moment between the girlish and feminine state. In this mesoscene situation of choice, what would Ophelia prefer: to give herself up to a female hobby, to move from love dreams to a real relationship, or would she prefer death? By the way, Hamlet is also present in this picture in the form of a tree. It would seem that the willow is a female symbol, but here it is a gnarled, rough tree. It is like a druid, and looks very brutal. The tree hangs over Ophelia, leans so low that the girl could grab it, hold on and survive. Why doesn't Ophelia do it? Why does she lack a relationship with a man? One reason is that Hamlet is passive. He will support her if Ophelia stretches out her hands herself, but he is not the first to offer help. And the second reason is Ophelia's deadly narcissism. We see the contrast of the beautiful harmonious world that surrounds Ophelia, her own ideal beauty, and the terrible gnarled tree that scares and repels with its rough realism. She renounces real sensual and emotional life with its imperfection in favor of narcissistic death, that is, in favor of what will allow her to keep her image beautiful, pure and immaculate. Here is such an intricate psychological transfer of the meanings of the picture. In general, everything seems very logical. But hardly an artist of those times could convey this scene so deeply. Or was it done by him unknowingly? The author of the painting himself was an incredibly talented artist and became famous as a child. He is the only one in history who was able to enter the Royal Academy of Arts at the age of 11. At the age of 15, he was already writing works of the same level as a mature academic. The picture of Ophelia Millais began to paint with a landscape, which, according to the artist, was no less important than the image of the character. A suitable place was found near a river in the county of Surrey in the east of England. The coastline and plant color most closely corresponded to the described scene in Shakespeare's play. In July 1851 year, the master began a difficult job. In order to study and accurately convey the plants surrounding Ophelia, Millais spent 11 hours on a glider every day for 5 months. Glider is a technique of painting paintings outside the workshop, in nature, in natural light. It, unlike traditional studio painting, allows the artist to display with greater accuracy on canvas or paper the richness of the surrounding colors and the slightest changes in the color of nature. In the hope of catching the perfect flowering of each species, Millais endured annoying insects, rains, and scorching sun. Bien-air is a rather difficult technique for painters to perform, also because when painting a picture in the open air, the surrounding light and air environment is constantly changing. All kinds of color shades appear and disappear. This becomes especially noticeable in sunny weather with variable clouds. Summer was ending, the days were getting shorter, some flowers were seen and others were blooming. By November, the weather worsened, strong cold winds simply blew away the easel. It was also hard for Elizabeth Siddal, a 19-year-old model who posed for John Millais in the workshop, to paint the image of the drowning heroine. Dressed in an antique dress bought by the artist in an antique shop, she lowered a bath filled with water, which was warmed by candles placed firm below. One day the candles went out and the water gradually cooled down. The master, who was passionate about his work, did not even notice this, and the girl, who was well acquainted with the creative process, did not dare to interrupt the inspiration of the painter, and became seriously ill. But, despite all the trials, a year later, in 1852 year, Ophelia was completed, and immediately exhibited at the Royal Academy of Arts, but there she met with an ambiguous assessment of her contemporaries. Some felt that the feeling of death was conveyed too literally. Others saw the erotic context and called the picture vicious. But everyone recognized the realistic depiction of nature, noted the symbolic details, the language of which was understandable and popular in Victorian England. To create naturalness, the artist used exceptional botanical precision and gentle transitions of colors. Abandoning the dark base, he described Ophelia on a dazzling white background, which breaks through the reeds growing in the water, and creates a mirror effect. Many varieties of flowers can be read as an omen of the sad fate of the heroine. Some are mentioned in the play by Shakespeare, and others are added by Millais himself to transmit code messages. The roses that float in the water and the white field bush growing on the shore are reminiscent of the May rose in the play, but have a funerary hue associated with the ceremonies of the cult of the dead. Willow, nettle, and daisies are associated with forgotten love, pain, and hatred. Pansies mean unrequited love. Garlands of violets around Ophelia's neck symbolize fidelity and chastity. Poppies predict death. John Miles' Ophelia painting has become the greatest masterpiece and the quintessence of Victorian painting, combining an interest in Shakespeare's plot with an attentive display of the details of nature. The painter created a memorable and unusual image for that time, demonstrated high technical skill, and an extraordinary artistic vision. Today, Ophelia is kept in the Tate Gallery in London, and Millais is still one of the most beloved artists of the mid-19th century by the British.